They said Marcus Cole had a cabin so remote that winter could trap you there for months, and hands so steady they'd once held a man's life together while a bullet was dug from his chest. He was a mountain man who'd seen death up close and chose solitude over the pain of losing people he loved. Rumor had it he'd lost his wife and unborn child to fever 10 years back and swore he'd never let himself care about anyone again. Every woman in Silver Creek who tried to reach him had failed. He wanted nothing to do with town, with people, with the complications of human connection. They thought a man that closed off couldn't be opened. They were wrong. They didn't know that sometimes the most broken people can only be healed by taking care of someone more broken than themselves. This is the true story of how the loneliest man in Colorado found a woman 9 months pregnant and dying in a blizzard, and discovered that some doors in the heart don't open from the outside, they open from the inside when you finally have a reason worth living for. Colorado Territory, January 1884. The blizzard had been building for 3 days, the kind of storm that turned the world into a white hell where sky and ground became indistinguishable, where a man could freeze to death 10 feet from his own cabin without knowing which way to turn. The wind howled like a living thing, angry and hungry, reaching temperatures that froze exposed skin in minutes. Snow didn't fall so much as it attacked, horizontal sheets of ice crystals that felt like needles against any exposed flesh. Marcus Cole knew this country. Knew its moods and its violence. Knew the difference between storms that blew through in hours and storms that could trap you for days. Knew when to push forward and when to hunker down and wait out nature's fury. He was checking his trap line anyway, because he was a fool who preferred the clean danger of freezing to spending another day alone with his thoughts and memories. The wind was a living thing, clawing at his face with icy fingers, trying to rip the fur hat from his head, finding every gap in his heavy coat to steal his warmth. He'd covered maybe 2 miles from his cabin, far enough that finding his way back would be a test of skill and luck even for someone who'd lived in these mountains for a decade. The traps were all empty. Everything with sense had gone to ground days ago, burrowed into dens and burrows to wait out the storm in the darkness. He was about to turn back, following his own rapidly disappearing footprints, when he saw it, a shape in the snow that didn't belong. Dark against white. Too big to be an animal. Too still to be alive. Could have been a fallen branch covered in snow. Could have been a rock. Could have been anything. Most men would have kept walking, too focused on their own survival to investigate. But Marcus Cole had spent 10 years punishing himself for not being able to save the people he loved. He wasn't going to add one more death to his conscience, even if it was just a deer that had frozen in the storm. He approached slowly, fighting through waist-deep drifts, snow filling his boots with each step, wind screaming in his ears like 1,000 angry spirits. And his heart, the heart he'd thought was frozen beyond feeling, the heart he'd deliberately encased in ice to protect it from ever hurting again, seized in his chest. A woman. Collapsed in the snow, curled on her side in a fetal position, wearing only a thin wool coat over a dress that was soaked through and already stiffening with ice. Her lips were blue, not just pale, but actually blue. Her skin was gray, the color of death approaching. Her hair was long, dark, crusted with ice that glittered in the dim storm light. She wasn't moving. Wasn't even shivering anymore, which Marcus knew was a very bad sign. The body stopped shivering when hypothermia reached its final stages. And her belly, God help him, her belly was huge, round, unmistakably pregnant. So pregnant she looked ready to give birth any moment. Marcus dropped to his knees beside her, the snow soaking through his pants instantly, but he didn't notice. He ripped off his thick leather glove with his teeth and pressed 2 fingers to her throat, to the spot where the pulse should be. Nothing. He waited, holding his breath, counting seconds, feeling for the faintest flutter. There. Faint. So faint he almost missed it. A pulse, weak and irregular, but present. Still alive. Barely. Lady, he said, his voice rough from weeks of not using it for anything except talking to himself. "Lady, can you hear me?" No response. She was completely unconscious, her body already beginning the process of shutting down to conserve warmth. Her breathing was shallow and irregular, maybe one breath every 10 seconds, when it should have been 3 or 4 times that. Marcus looked around at the white hell of the blizzard, at the miles of nothing between here and anywhere, at the woman who would be dead within an hour if he didn't move her right now. He looked at her swollen belly and felt something twist in his chest, memory, pain, the ghost of a life he'd lost. He'd sworn 10 years ago never to care about anyone again. Never to risk the soul-destroying pain of losing someone he loved. Never to let anyone need him, because needing him meant he could fail them. And he'd already failed the 2 people who'd mattered most. But leaving her here, leaving her and her unborn child to freeze to death alone in the storm, that wasn't an option his conscience would survive. He'd already buried 2 people. He couldn't walk away from a 3rd and 4th, no matter how much safer it would be for his frozen heart. He shrugged off his heavy fur coat, bare fur, thick and warm, the difference between survival and death in this cold, and wrapped it around her. She didn't respond, didn't even flinch at the touch. That was bad. Very bad. Her body was too cold to register warmth. Then Marcus lifted her into his arms. She was surprisingly heavy, not just the woman but the weight of the pregnancy, the child she was carrying adding 30 or 40 pounds to her frame. Her head lolled against his shoulder, a dead weight, and he could feel how cold she was even through all the layers. Like holding a statue made of ice. "Don't you die on me," Marcus muttered, not sure if he was talking to her or to himself or to the universe that seemed determined to take everyone he tried to care about. "Not yet. Not here. Don't you dare die." The journey back to his cabin was hell incarnate. The woman was deadweight in his arms, getting heavier with every step. Without his coat, the cold attacked him viciously, finding every gap in his remaining clothes, sucking the warmth from his body. The wind seemed to have doubled in strength, pushing against him, trying to knock him down, trying to steal the woman from his arms. He couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. The world was white in every direction, no landmarks visible, no way to know if he was walking in circles or heading deeper into the wilderness. He navigated by instinct and memory, by the barely visible shapes of rocks and trees he knew were there even when he couldn't see them. By the slope of the land under his feet. By the way the wind hit his face from a certain direction. His legs burned with exhaustion. His arms trembled from the weight. His lungs screamed with every breath of air so cold it felt like inhaling knives. The cold was a living enemy, trying to convince him to stop, to rest, to just sit down for a minute. The cold was a liar. Sitting down meant death. But he kept moving. One step. Then another. Then another. Because somewhere in the last 10 years of self-imposed isolation and self-inflicted loneliness, he'd apparently remained human enough to care whether a pregnant stranger lived or died. Because the alternative, arriving at his cabin alive while she froze in his arms, was unthinkable. His cabin appeared out of the white like salvation, small, rough, built for survival not comfort, just one room with a stone fireplace and log walls chinked with mud. But it was solid and it had heat and it was the difference between life and death. Marcus kicked open the door, couldn't spare a hand to turn the handle, and carried her inside. He laid her on his bed, the only bed, a rough frame with a straw mattress covered in furs and wool blankets. She looked tiny in it, lost, her pregnant belly the only substantial thing about her. Her face was gray, her lips blue, ice still in her hair. She was so cold. Too cold. Her skin felt like touching snow. Hypothermia this severe, combined with advanced pregnancy, was a death sentence more often than not. He'd seen men die from less. But Marcus Cole had spent 10 years alone in these mountains learning everything there was to know about survival. About cold and heat and the narrow line between life and death. He worked with the practiced efficiency of a man who dealt with emergencies before, who dragged frozen trappers back from the edge more than once. He stripped off her wet clothes with clinical detachment, trying and failing not to notice how thin she was, how her ribs showed despite the swollen belly, how her body showed evidence of recent hardship. Bruises on her arms, old but still visible. Her hands rough with work, nails broken, knuckles swollen. This was a woman who'd been surviving, not living. He wrapped her in every blanket he owned, wool and fur and whatever he could pile on. He stoked the fire until it roared, until the cabin was almost unbearably hot, until sweat ran down his own back. He heated water in his kettle, and when it was warm, not hot, hot could do more damage, he carefully gave her sips, forcing warmth into her body drop by drop. Her throat moved instinctively, swallowing even though she wasn't conscious. And all the while, as he worked to save her life, Marcus tried not to think about the last time he'd seen a pregnant woman. His wife Clara, 7 months along, glowing with life, hand always on her belly, telling him she could feel the baby kick, asking him if he thought it would be a boy or a girl, making plans for their future. 3 weeks later, the fever had come. 3 days after that, both of them were gone, Clara and the baby who'd never had a chance to take a single breath. Buried in the same coffin because they'd died together. That had been the end of Marcus Cole as a functioning member of society. He'd walked away from his small farm, from the town, from everything that reminded him of them. Walked into these mountains and built a cabin as far from humanity as he could get. Spent 10 years trapping and hunting and trying to feel nothing. And now here was another pregnant woman, dying in his bed, needing him to save her. The universe, he thought bitterly, had a cruel sense of humor. The woman stirred as the warmth began to revive her. Her eyes flickered open, brown eyes, confused, frightened, taking in the unfamiliar cabin, the strange man hovering over her. "Easy," Marcus said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're safe. I found you in the storm. You were nearly frozen." She tried to sit up, panicked, and immediately gasped in pain, one hand flying to her swollen belly. "Don't move," Marcus said quickly. "You're pregnant and you've been through hell. Just breathe. You're safe here." "Where?" Her voice was a rasp, damaged by cold and screaming into wind. "Where am I?" "My cabin. About 10 miles north of Silver Creek. I'm Marcus Cole." "What's your name?" "Elena," she whispered. "Elena Vasquez." "Well, Elena Vasquez, you came damn close to dying today. What the hell were you doing out in that storm?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Running." "From what?" "Everything." She closed her eyes, and one tear tracked down her gaunt cheek. "From nothing. I don't know anymore." Marcus let her rest, but as the hours passed and he watched her sleep, he began to piece together her story from the evidence. The dress, though soaked and ruined, had once been quality fabric. A married woman's dress. The wedding ring on her finger, simple but real gold. The bruises on her arms, old but visible. Finger-shaped. The way she'd flinched when he'd moved too quickly near her. The absolute desperation that would drive a woman 9 months pregnant out into a killing storm. When she woke again, Marcus had soup ready, rabbit he'd caught 2 days ago, simmered with the last of his winter vegetables. He helped her sit up against the wall, wrapped in blankets, and handed her the bowl. "Eat slowly," he said. "Your stomach's probably empty." She obeyed, sipping the broth, and after a few minutes some color returned to her face. She looked around the cabin properly now, one room, sparsely furnished, everything built for function. A man's space. A hermit space. You live here alone? She asked. Yes. No wife? Had one. She died. Marcus kept his voice flat, discouraging further questions. Elena was quiet for a moment, then, I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Does it stop hurting? Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. She couldn't be more than 25. Pretty, or would be if she wasn't half-starved and exhausted. And so heavily pregnant she could give birth any day. No, he said honestly. But you learn to live with it. Elena nodded, understanding in her eyes. My husband died 3 months ago. Mine collapse. They said he was crushed instantly, didn't suffer. They said it like that should make it better. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. She laughed bitterly. But sorry doesn't pay rent or buy food. Sorry doesn't help when you're alone and pregnant and the landlord wants you out because a widow with a baby isn't a good investment. Sorry doesn't do anything except make the person saying it feel better. Marcus had no response to that. She was right. So I ran, Elena continued. I had nowhere to go, no family, no money. The town council was going to put me in the church charity house until the baby came, then take it away and place it with a proper family. They said a widowed Mexican woman couldn't raise a child alone. They had a nice white family all picked out. Jesus, Marcus muttered. So I ran. Thought I'd make it to the next town, find work, figure something out. But the storm came. She looked down at her belly. And I'm so close. The baby could come any day. Maybe any hour. Can't come yet, Marcus said firmly. Storm's supposed to last another 2 days. We're trapped here until it passes. Elena's hand moved protectively over her belly. Then I guess the baby will just have to wait. But nature, Marcus knew, didn't care about human plans. The contractions started that night. Marcus woke to the sound of Elena gasping in pain. He was on his feet immediately, moving to her side. What's wrong? She bit off a cry. It's coming. The baby. It's coming now. Marcus felt ice flood his veins. No. No, it's too soon. You said you had time. I was wrong. Elena grabbed his arm, her grip painful. Or maybe the cold triggered it. I don't know. But this is happening. Marcus, this is happening right now. For one terrible moment, Marcus froze. This was his nightmare. Pregnant woman, in pain, needing help he didn't know how to give. Last time, he'd watched helplessly as both mother and child died despite everything the town doctor tried. I can't, he heard himself say. I don't know how. I can't. You have to. Elena's voice was iron despite the pain. There's no one else. It's you or no one. So you're going to help me, because I'm not dying here and neither is my baby. Do you understand? Marcus looked into her fierce eyes and saw not his dead wife but this woman, Elena, stubborn and strong and refusing to give up despite everything the world had thrown at her. Okay, he said, forcing his voice steady. Okay. Tell me what to do. Water, Elena gasped as another contraction hit. Hot water. Clean cloths. And something to cut the cord. Marcus moved into action, grateful for specific tasks. He built up the fire, heated water, found the cleanest cloths he owned, sterilized his hunting knife in boiling water. All the while, Elena breathed through contractions, gripping the bed frame, refusing to scream despite the pain written on her face. How long? Marcus asked. First baby. Could be hours. Could be all night. She managed a weak smile. Hope you didn't have other plans. Nothing that can't wait. Hours passed. The storm raged outside, but inside the cabin time became measured in contractions, in breaths, in moments between pain. Marcus had never felt so helpless and so necessary at the same time. He held her hand when she needed something to grip. Gave her water when she could drink. Wiped sweat from her forehead. Told her she was doing well even though he had no idea if she was or not. And Elena fought. Through pain that would have broken most people, through exhaustion, through fear, she fought for her child. Near dawn, everything changed. "Marcus," Elena said, her voice weak. "Something's wrong." "What?" "What's wrong?" "The baby. I can feel it. It's not positioned right. It's stuck." Marcus felt panic rise. "What do I do?" "You have to reach in. Feel where the baby is. Try to turn it if you can." "Elena, I can't." "You can." She grabbed his shirt, pulling him close. "Listen to me. If you don't do this, we both die. Me and the baby. Right here. Right now. Is that what you want? To watch 2 more people die because you were too afraid to try?" The words hit like physical blows. She was right. He could refuse, protect himself from the pain of potential failure, and watch them die. Or he could try. "Tell me what to do," Marcus said. Elena guided him, her voice shaking but clear, explaining what he needed to feel for, how to gently reposition the baby. Marcus's hands, rough hands built for trapping and hunting, became careful, gentle, following her instructions with terrifying precision. And there, in that small cabin while a blizzard raged outside, Marcus Cole faced his greatest fear and pushed through it. "There," Elena gasped. "That's it. I can feel it moving." "Marcus, you did it." But they weren't done yet. The final stage of labor was brutal. Elena's strength was fading, her cries growing weaker. Marcus held her shoulders, supporting her, willing his own strength into her body. "Push," he said. "Elena, push. You can do this." "I can't." "Yes, you can. You survived a blizzard. You survived everything. You can survive this. Push." And she did. One final, enormous effort, and suddenly there was a baby in Marcus's hands, wet, tiny, frighteningly still. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the baby gasped, coughed, and let out a furious wail that was the most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard. "It's a girl," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Elena, you have a daughter." He wrapped the baby in clean cloth, cut the cord with hands that shook, and placed her on Elena's chest. Mother and daughter, both crying, both alive. Elena looked up at Marcus with tears streaming down her face. "We did it." "You did it," Marcus corrected. "I just helped." But Elena shook her head. "We did it. Together." Outside, the storm raged on. But inside the cabin, there was warmth and life and the sound of a newborn baby's cries. Marcus stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness, letting the cold slap him back to reality. He'd just delivered a baby. Helped save 2 lives. Done the impossible thing he'd spent 10 years convinced he could never do again. And he'd survived it. The fear, the memory, the pain of loss, all of it had been there, but he'd pushed through anyway. Something inside him that had been frozen for a decade began to thaw. The storm passed 2 days later. Marcus spent that time caring for Elena and the baby, whom Elena named Hope, because she said that's what Marcus had given her when she'd had none left. He learned about Elena's life. Her husband Roberto had been a good man, gentle and hard-working, who died too young. She'd been alone in a town that saw Mexican widows as problems to be solved, not people to be helped. She tried everything: sewing, laundry, cleaning, but pregnant women were bad investments. Employers wanted labor without complications. "What will you do now?" Marcus asked on the third day, when Elena was strong enough to walk around the cabin. "I don't know," she admitted. She held Hope against her chest, the baby sleeping peacefully. "I can't go back to Silver Creek. They'll take her away. But I can't stay here forever. This is your home, your life. I'm grateful for everything, but I won't impose." "What if you didn't have to go?" Marcus interrupted. Elena looked up sharply. "What?" Marcus took a breath. He'd been thinking about this for 2 days, and every logical argument against it was being drowned out by one simple truth: he didn't want them to leave. "This cabin is small, but I could build an addition. There's room. And you need somewhere to stay, somewhere safe. I could use the help. Winter's hard up here alone. You could stay. Both of you." "Marcus, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." He sat down across from her. "Elena, I spent 10 years alone because I was afraid. Afraid of caring, of losing, of feeling anything. Then you showed up, and in 3 days you've made me remember why being human matters. Hope needs a safe place to grow. You need time to heal and figure out your next steps. I need to not be alone anymore." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "What about the town? What will people say?" "Let them say whatever they want. We're 10 miles from anywhere. And if you're worried about propriety, we can make it a business arrangement. You help with the cabin, I provide shelter. Fair exchange. Is that really what you want?" Elena asked quietly. "A business arrangement?" Marcus met her eyes. "For now. Yes. Because anything else is too fast, too complicated. But in time, maybe it could be more. If we both wanted it to be." Elena looked down at baby Hope, then back at Marcus. "You saved our lives. Both of us. I don't know how to repay that." "Then don't try. Just stay. Let that be enough." After a long moment, Elena nodded. "Okay. We'll stay. For now." The storm continued for another full day and night. During that time, as Elena recovered her strength and baby Hope nursed and slept, Marcus learned Elena's full story in pieces, told between feedings and diaper changes and the exhausted rest of new motherhood. Her maiden name had been Romero. Born in Santa Fe to a family that had lived in New Mexico for generations, long before it was American territory. Her father had been a skilled silversmith, her mother a seamstress who'd taught Elena everything she knew about fabric and thread. She'd met Roberto Vasquez when she was 19. He'd been a miner, but a good man, gentle, hard-working, the kind of man who sang to children and helped elderly neighbors with their chores. They'd married with her father's blessing, moved to Silver Creek where the mining was good. For 3 years, they'd been happy. Not wealthy, miners never were, but content. They'd saved money for a house of their own. Planted a garden. Talked about babies and futures and growing old together. Then came the accident. Elena's voice grew flat when she talked about it, the way people sound when they've told a story so many times it stopped feeling real. The mine shaft collapsed. 17 men died. Roberto was one of them. They said it was quick, that he wouldn't have suffered. Like that makes it better somehow. Like knowing he didn't suffer for long makes up for the fact that he's gone. She'd been 4 months pregnant when it happened. The mining company had given her $50, blood money, guilt payment, whatever you wanted to call it. The town had organized a collection that raised another $80 to rebuild a life from ruins. I tried everything, Elena said, nursing hope while Marcus sat across from her, listening. I took in sewing, laundry, cleaning. But nobody wants to hire a pregnant woman. Too unreliable, they said. What if you go into labor in the middle of the workday? What if the baby gets sick and you can't work? What if? The landlord had been patient at first. Given her 2 months' grace. Then 3. Then started making comments about how maybe she should consider her options. Maybe she should think about what was best for the baby. Maybe a child deserved parents who could provide properly, not a struggling widow living in one room. I knew what he meant, Elena said. The church had people. Good Christian families, they called them. Wealthy. White. American families who wanted babies but couldn't have them. They'd take my baby and give her everything, food, clothes, education, a proper home. Everything except me. The pressure had built slowly. Comments became suggestions. Suggestions became pressure. Pressure became ultimatums. Give up the baby or get out. Those were my choices. Sign the papers, let the church find her a good home, and they'd pay my rent for another year. Or keep her and lose everything anyway when I couldn't pay. Elena had made lists, trying to figure out impossible math. How much money she needed versus how much she could possibly earn. The numbers never added up. Single mothers didn't get hired for good jobs. Didn't get loaned money. Didn't get chances. And Mexican widows got even less. So I ran. Packed everything I could carry, which wasn't much, and walked out in the middle of the night. Thought I'd make it to Alamosa, find work there, start over somewhere nobody knew me. But I didn't know the storm was coming. Didn't check the weather. I was so focused on getting away that I didn't think about where I was going to. She'd made it maybe 20 miles before the blizzard hit. Had tried to find shelter, but this country was unforgiving. You either knew it or you died in it. Elena hadn't known it. I remember being cold, she said softly. So cold I stopped shivering. My legs stopped working. I fell down in the snow and I couldn't get back up. And I remember thinking, at least Hope will be born free. Even if we both die here, at least she won't be taken from me and given to strangers who'll raise her to forget she was ever mine. Marcus was quiet for a long moment after she finished. Then, you're the bravest person I've ever met. I'm not brave. I was terrified. Brave people are terrified, Marcus said. They do it anyway. That's what makes it brave. Elena looked at him, really looked at him. This mountain man who'd saved her life, delivered her baby, was giving her shelter without asking for anything in return. And she realized she knew almost nothing about him. Your turn, she said. Tell me about your wife. Marcus's face closed like a door slamming shut. Not much to tell. You loved her. Yes. How did she die? Marcus was quiet so long Elena thought he wouldn't answer. Then, fever. Childbed fever. She was 7 months along when it started. By the time we got her to the doctor, it was too late for both of them. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry, Marcus said, echoing her own words back to her. But sorry doesn't bring them back. What was her name? Clara. Marcus stared into the fire. Clara Cole. She was sunshine in human form. Laughed at everything. Saw good in everyone. Made me believe I could be better than I was. When she died. He trailed off, shaking his head. When she died, you stopped believing, Elena finished softly. I stopped everything. Sold the farm. Walked away from the town. Came up here to be alone because being around people who were still living felt like a betrayal of her memory. For 10 years. For 10 years. Elena shifted Hope to her other shoulder, patting the baby's back gently. What made you come out that day? In the storm? Marcus laughed bitterly. Stupidity. Stubbornness. The trap line needed checking and I was going crazy sitting in this cabin with nothing but my own thoughts for company. So you went out in a killer storm. I've been in worse. And found me. And found you. Marcus finally looked at her. Elena, I need you to understand something. When I saw you in the snow, pregnant and dying, part of me wanted to keep walking. Wanted to pretend I hadn't seen you. Because getting involved meant caring, and caring meant risking loss, and I decided I couldn't survive that again. But you didn't keep walking. No. Because apparently 10 years of isolation didn't kill whatever part of me still believes in doing the right thing even when it's hard. He paused. And because I couldn't live with myself if I'd let you die. If I'd let your baby die. Even if helping you meant opening all the old wounds again. Elena reached across the space between them and took his hand. Thank you. For opening the wounds. For helping anyway. For choosing us. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. You don't have to thank me. Yes, Elena said firmly. I do. Because what you did, saving us, helping me give birth, offering us shelter, that wasn't nothing. That was everything. And I won't pretend it was easy for you just because you made it look easy. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the storm rage outside and baby Hope's soft breathing. Then Elena said, Tell me about her. Clara. What was she like? And slowly, haltingly, Marcus did. Talked about how they'd met at a church social. How she'd laughed at his terrible attempts at dancing. How she'd somehow seen past the rough exterior to the man underneath. How she'd made him want to be better, do better, build something meaningful. How pregnancy had made her glow. How excited she'd been about becoming a mother. How she'd spent hours sewing tiny clothes and planning a nursery. How quickly it had all fallen apart. 3 days, Marcus said quietly. That's all it took. 3 days from first fever to the end. The doctor said there was nothing anyone could have done. That sometimes these things just happen. That it wasn't my fault. He laughed bitterly. As if that helps. It doesn't, Elena said. But it's true. Sometimes terrible things happen and there's no one to blame, nothing that could have been done differently. The world is just cruel sometimes. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. It's supposed to make you stop blaming yourself for something you couldn't control. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, how did you do it? Move forward after Roberto died? Start over. I didn't have a choice, Elena said simply. I had hope growing inside me. I had a reason to keep living even when I didn't want to. You put one foot in front of the other. You make it through one day, then another, then another. And eventually, the days start to be bearable. Then good. Then worth living. Does it ever stop hurting? Elena considered the question. No. But the hurt changes. Becomes less sharp. More like an old scar, always there, but not always bleeding. You learn to carry it. Marcus looked at her with something like wonder. You're 25 years old. How are you this wise? Elena laughed softly. 25 years is a lot of time when you've lived the life I have. I grew up fast, Marcus. Had to. The world doesn't give Mexican girls the luxury of staying soft and innocent for long. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the fire crackled. And two broken people sat together in the warmth, sharing their grief, finding unexpected comfort in mutual understanding. Spring came late to the Colorado mountains that year. Marcus spent the winter months building an addition to the cabin, a separate room for Elena and Hope, giving them privacy and space while keeping them close. He worked in the brief daylight hours and by lantern light in the evenings, sawing logs and fitting them together, chinking gaps with mud and moss. Elena watched him work when she wasn't caring for Hope, and she saw the difference in him. The haunted look in his eyes was fading, replaced by something that looked almost like peace. He smiled now, not often, but sometimes. He talked more. Laughed at Hope's baby noises. He was coming back to life, and Elena realized with a start that she was too. They fell into a routine that winter. Marcus hunted and trapped, providing meat and furs to trade at the distant trading post. Elena cooked and cleaned, mended his clothes, kept the cabin warm and livable. They shared meals by the fire. Took turns holding Hope while she fussed through her first winter. Talked about everything and nothing, books they'd read, places they'd been, dreams they'd once had. And slowly, carefully, something deeper began to grow between them. It started with small things. Marcus's hand lingering on Elena's when he passed her a cup of coffee. The way Elena's eyes tracked him when he moved around the cabin. The comfortable silences that felt intimate rather than awkward. The way they'd catch each other looking and quickly glance away, both smiling. One evening in late February, as they sat by the fire after Hope had fallen asleep, Elena said, "I need to tell you something." Marcus looked up from the trap he was repairing. "Okay. I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus's hand stilled on the trap, his expression unreadable. "Elena. Let me finish," she interrupted gently. "I know it's fast. I know it might seem like gratitude or dependency. I know Roberto has only been gone for months. But Marcus, what I feel for you isn't confusion. It's not desperation. It's love. Real, honest love. You make me laugh. You make me feel safe. You make me want to build a future instead of just surviving day to day. And I understand if you don't feel the same way. If you're not ready. If this is moving too fast. But I needed you to know." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. "Then, I fell in love with you the night Hope was born." Elena's breath caught. "What?" "When you grabbed my face and told me to stop being afraid. When you fought through impossible pain to bring your daughter into the world. When you refused to give up even though you had every reason to. That's when I knew. That's when something in me that had been frozen for 10 years started to thaw." He finally looked at her. "I love you, Elena. I have for months. But I was afraid. Afraid of moving too fast. Afraid of you thinking I was taking advantage of your situation. Afraid of caring about someone again and losing them. And now I'm more afraid of not telling you. Of wasting time being scared when we could be building something together." Elena moved to sit beside him, and Marcus pulled her close, holding her like she was something precious and fragile that he'd been afraid to touch. "I'm not replacing Roberto," Marcus said quietly. "And you're not replacing Clara. They'll always be part of us. But Elena, we can still choose this. Choose each other. Choose to build something new from the ruins of what we've lost." "Yes," Elena whispered. "That's exactly what I want." When Marcus kissed her, it felt like coming home and starting over all at once. But their peace was shattered in early March when Marcus went to the trading post for supplies. He'd been gone for 2 days. It was a long trip, dangerous in winter, when he returned early with a grim expression and urgent news. "There are men looking for you," he said without preamble, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. 2 of them. From Silver Creek. They were at the trading post asking questions. Showing papers. Elena felt ice flood her veins. What kind of papers? Court documents. Signed by a judge. They say you abandoned your child and fled town. That hope needs to be placed in protective custody with a suitable family. They have a family already selected, the Whitfields. Wealthy mine owners. Good Christians, they said. The way Marcus spat the words made his opinion of that very clear. Elena clutched Hope tighter to her chest, the baby squirming at the sudden pressure. No. No, they can't take her. I didn't abandon her, she's right here with me. I know. But they're claiming you're an unfit mother. That you ran away in a storm, nearly killed yourself and the baby through recklessness, that you're living in sin with a man you're not married to. Marcus's jaw clenched. They're twisting everything to make you look unstable and irresponsible. What do we do? Elena's voice was shaking. Marcus, what do we do? If they find us, if they take her. They're not taking her. Marcus's voice was cold and hard, the mountain man who'd survived a decade alone, who'd faced down grizzlies and blizzards and every danger the wilderness could throw at him. But Elena, we need to make this legal. We need to give them something they can't argue with. What do you mean? Marcus knelt before her, taking both her hands in his. Marry me. Right now. Today. We'll ride to the trading post, find someone to perform a ceremony, make it official and legal. Then you're not a single mother anymore. Hope has a father figure in her life. We're a family unit, recognized by law. They can't take a child from a married couple without proving unfitness, and we're not unfit. We're responsible, capable, providing well for her. Marcus, you don't have to do this. You shouldn't have to marry me just to. I'm not marrying you just to save Hope, Marcus interrupted. I'm marrying you because I love you. Because I want you to stay forever. Because watching you be a mother to Hope has shown me what family really means. Because I want more than this temporary arrangement. I want a real partnership. A real life. With you. Elena was crying. Are you sure? We've only known each other for 3 months. I've never been more sure of anything. Marcus squeezed her hands. Elena, I spent 10 years alone because I was too afraid to risk caring about someone again. Then you showed up and reminded me why being human matters. Why love is worth the risk. I don't want to waste another day being scared. So yes, I'm sure. The question is, are you? Elena looked at this man who'd saved her life, delivered her baby, built them a home with his own hands, loved her daughter like she was his own. This man who'd been broken and was healing. This man who was offering her not just protection but partnership. Yes, she said. Yes, Marcus. I'll marry you. They left within the hour, Hope bundled warm against the spring cold, Marcus and Elena riding double on his sturdy mountain horse. The journey to the trading post took most of a day, and they arrived as the sun was setting. The trading post was run by a man named Jacob Weatherby, a former trapper who'd married a Ute woman and settled into respectable business. He took one look at their faces and the baby in Elena's arms and immediately understood the urgency. The men from Silver Creek are staying at my establishment, he said quietly. Planning to head up to your cabin tomorrow with the sheriff. They've got papers, Marcus. Legal papers. Then we need to make this legal right now, Marcus said. Can you marry us? I can witness and record it, Jacob said. My wife Sarah has the authority, she's recognized by the territorial government as a tribal leader. If she performs the ceremony and I record it, it's as legal as anything the town judge could do. Sarah Weatherby was a small, dignified woman with knowing eyes. She listened to their situation without judgment, then nodded. I'll do it. But understand, marriage is sacred. It's not just legal protection. It's a commitment before the Creator, before your community, before each other. Are you both prepared for that? Yes, Elena and Marcus said together. The ceremony was simple but profound. No fancy clothes, no flowers, no guests beyond Jacob and Sarah as witnesses. Just two people who'd found each other in impossible circumstances, standing before a fire in a rustic trading post, making vows that would bind them together legally, spiritually, emotionally. Do you, Marcus Cole, take this woman to be your wife? To honor, protect, and cherish, in plenty and in want, in joy and in sorrow, for as long as you both live? I do. Marcus's voice was steady, sure. Do you, Elena Vasquez, take this man to be your husband? To honor, respect, and stand beside, in plenty and in want, in joy and in sorrow, for as long as you both live? I do. Elena's voice was soft but certain. Sarah smiled. Then by the authority vested in me by the Ute Nation and recognized by the Colorado Territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. May your union bring blessings to your family and your community. When Marcus kissed her, Elena tasted salt from her own tears, happy tears, relieved tears, tears of finally feeling safe after months of running. Jacob recorded the marriage in his official ledger, writing careful details, names, date, witnesses. Then he made 2 copies of the certificate, both signed and sealed. Keep these safe, he said. One for you, one for the territorial records. This is your proof. They spent the night at the trading post, and in the morning, the men from Silver Creek arrived. There were 3 of them, Sheriff Thomas Brennan from Silver Creek, and 2 men Elena recognized, Reverend Milton Hardwick from the church, and Samuel Whitfield, the mine owner who wanted to adopt Hope. Marcus and Elena met them in the trading post's common room, Elena holding Hope in her arms, Marcus standing beside her, not in front of her, not speaking for her, but beside her as an equal partner. Mrs. Vasquez, Sheriff Brennan said, his tone trying for official and landing somewhere near apologetic. We need to speak with you about your daughter. It's Mrs. Cole now, Elena said calmly. And you can speak to both of us. My husband and I are a partnership. The sheriff's eyes widened slightly. You're married? Last night. Marcus pulled out the marriage certificate. Legal and binding. Witnessed and recorded. My wife and I are raising our daughter together. Your daughter? Samuel Whitfield's voice was sharp with frustration. That child isn't yours. You have no legal claim. I have every legal claim, Marcus interrupted coldly. As Elena's husband, Hope is my legal daughter. And as a married couple providing a stable home, you have no grounds to remove her from our care. Reverend Hardwick stepped forward. This marriage seems awfully convenient, Mr. Cole. Some might say it was entered into fraudulently, solely to avoid the court's judgment about the child's welfare. Then some people would be wrong, Elena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Marcus and I have been living together for 3 months. We fell in love while surviving winter together. We were planning to marry anyway, your arrival simply accelerated our timeline. Living together unmarried, Whitfield said with barely concealed disgust. Living in sin. That's exactly why the child needs to be removed. We were not living in sin, Marcus's voice was ice. Elena had her own room. Our relationship was appropriate and respectful. And even if it hadn't been, we're married now, which makes all of this irrelevant. Sheriff Brennan looked uncomfortable. Mr. Cole, Mrs. Cole, the court issued orders based on Mrs. Cole's disappearance from Silver Creek while heavily pregnant, in dangerous weather. There were real concerns about her judgment and the child's safety. My judgment was sound, Elena said firmly. I was fleeing from a town that wanted to steal my baby. That wanted to take my daughter away and give her to strangers just because I'm a widow and Mexican. So yes, I ran. And yes, I risked the storm. But I was protecting her from a different kind of danger, the kind where children are stolen from their mothers under the guise of Christian charity. Now see here, Whitfield started. No, you see here, Elena interrupted, her voice rising. Hope is my daughter. I carried her. I gave birth to her in a blizzard with only my husband's help because I refused to let you take her. She's fed, healthy, happy, and loved. She has two parents who would die for her. You have no right, legal or moral, to take her from us. There was a long, tense silence. Finally, Sheriff Brennan sighed. Mrs. Cole, I'm going to be honest with you. This wasn't my idea. The Whitfields wanted a baby, the church wanted to help save a child from a difficult situation, and Judge Morton signed papers without much thought. But you're married now. You have a home. The baby appears healthy and well cared for. I don't see grounds to pursue this further. Sheriff. Whitfield protested. The court orders. The court orders were based on a situation that no longer exists, Brennan said firmly. Mrs. Cole is no longer a single mother. She has a husband, a home, stability. Unless you can prove actual unfitness or danger to the child, I'm not taking a baby from a legitimate family. That's not what I signed up for. Reverend Hardwick's face was tight with disapproval. This is highly irregular. So is trying to steal a woman's baby, Marcus said coldly. Now if you gentlemen are finished, my wife and I need to get our daughter home. They left Silver Creek's representative standing in the trading post, frustrated and empty-handed. Marcus, Elena, and baby Hope rode back toward the mountains, toward their cabin, toward their new life together as a real, legal family. We did it, Elena said as they rode. We actually did it. You did it, Marcus corrected. You fought for your daughter. I just stood beside you. Elena leaned back against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. That's all I ever needed. Someone to stand beside me, not in front of me. Someone who sees me as an equal partner, not someone who needs rescuing. Hope made a contented baby noise, and both of them laughed, the sound echoing across the mountain valley, full of relief and joy and the beginning of something beautiful. 5 years later, Marcus Cole stood on that same porch, watching his daughters play in the yard. Hope was 5 now, joined by her younger sister Grace, age 2. Elena was inside, pregnant with their third child, humming as she worked. The cabin had been expanded twice now. The trapping had grown into a small trade business. The isolation had become chosen solitude rather than fearful retreat. And Marcus, who'd spent a decade convinced he could never survive caring about people again, had learned something profound, that the heart doesn't break from loving again. It breaks from never trying. Sometimes the deepest healing comes not from time or distance, but from giving yourself permission to be needed by someone who needs you just as much. In that Colorado mountain cabin, 2 broken people had found each other in a blizzard and built something neither could have built alone, a family, a life, a future filled with hope. If this story of survival, courage, and the power of partnership in the face of impossible odds moved you, please hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to remember that when everything falls apart, sometimes the falling leads you exactly where you need to be. Subscribe to Western Souls for more tales of courage, survival, and the profound truth that we're strongest when we let ourselves need and be needed by others. And tell me in the comments, have you ever found hope in your darkest moment? What happened? Where frontier justice meets the human heart.